Hey there guys, John here. And this installment of my video blog, I want to talk a little bit about a debate I've been having on Twitter with a couple people and on Facebook with a couple people, and that is this, that Jesse Eisenberg, the star of The Social Network, should not be nominated for Best Actor. Now, let me say this first. Whenever you hear somebody say, why such and such shouldn't get this, usually that means that post or that editorial is going to be something that's slamming the person in question or talking about negative things about the person in question. And if you came to watch this video expecting to hear me lay out why Jesse Eisenberg sucked in The Social Network or why he did a bad job, you're going to be sorely disappointed because I actually don't have anything negative to say about the performance that Jesse gave in The Social Network playing Mark Zuckerberg. As a matter of fact, I think he did a terrific job. I think he did a really solid job. He took the character that was given to him and played the role that he was asked to play, and I think did it really, really well. Then you might ask, well then John, why are you saying that, if you're saying he did such a great job and played the character who's handed, blah, 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 why shouldn't he be nominated for Best Actor? And it basically comes down to this. To use an Olympic term, degree of difficulty. And what I mean by that is this. Let me make a comparison with gymnastics, all right? In gymnastics, people are scored on how well they do, on what they were doing, but they're also scored on degree of difficulty. How difficult was it? Was this one thing they were trying to do in their gymnastics routine? And that figures in to the scoring, right? So if you get a guy who runs down the mat, and in his program, he does 7 backflips, followed by a triple salt in the air, rounded out into this perfect 5-step landing. 5 steps wouldn't be a perfect landing, but you know what I mean. He's going to be judged differently than a guy who goes out on the floor and does a somersault. Now, granted, the guy who's doing the somersault could go out there and do one of the best somersaults ever executed in the history of the Olympics. Great. But at the end of the day, it was still just a somersault. He may have done it perfectly, but when they average out the degree of difficulty between the guy doing the somersault and the guy doing 7 backflips and a triple flip in the air and blah, 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 clearly you can't score the two guys the same. Degree of difficulty comes into consideration. Now, what that has to do with my whole stuff about Jesse in The Social Network is that he was given a character, and he was asked to play a character that essentially had one note. In The Social Network, I'm a terrible actor and I don't do good impressions, but bear with me. In The Social Network, Jesse Eisenberg was given a character who basically talked like this, and talked like this throughout basically the whole film. His anger got about this high, his death and depression got about this low, but there was this very finite range. He basically had one disposition throughout the entire film. The character was a one-note character. Now, that's not a criticism of Jesse or the job he did, because that's what he was handed. That's what he was asked to do, and he did it very, very well. But this was a character who had the same look on his face, the same tone in his voice. Everything was the same from the beginning of the film to the end of the film. And the moments where there was some range where he got a little bit more emotionally agitated, barely budged, and where he got a little bit more emotionally down, barely budged. I mean, it takes a skilled actor to bring out those nuances. And like I said, the job Jesse Eisenberg did in that film, he nailed the character. He did it extremely well, and he should be given a lot of praise for it. But bringing it back to the gymnastics thing, talking about degree of difficulty, this was essentially a one-note character. It wasn't that difficult of a character to play. I could have played this character. I'm not saying I would have played him very well, but I mean, I could have played the character. Jesse Eisenberg took the character. He nailed it. He did it almost flawlessly. But at the end of the day, it was still a one-note character. As a matter of fact, Andrew Garfield, the guy who plays Eduardo in the film, who's Mark Zuckerberg's best friend that ultimately he betrays, he is the heart and soul, I think, of The Social Network. His character had a lot more dynamic range, a lot more emotional depth, a lot more movement in his character. And I think Andrew Garfield's character and Andrew Garfield's performance is what brought the humanity to the film. His performance is actually the soul, if you will, the heart, the beating heart of the film. The character's about Mark Zuckerberg, and for that film to work, Jesse Eisenberg's got to execute the character almost perfectly, and he does. But still, it's a kind of character that he was handed that I just don't think qualifies to be in the conversation about best performance of the year. Not because of him, but because that's the character that he was handed. It was just too simple of a character. It was a somersault in a field filled with guys who were doing triple backflips. When you look at guys like Colin Firth or other, the top contenders like that, Ryan Gosling, the Dude, all these other performers had a lot more range than Eisenberg's did. Once again, that's not a knock or a criticism on Jesse Eisenberg. He did a great job. It's just not a character who, regardless of the performance, deserves to be nominated for Best Picture. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I'm giving it to you straight. Leave your thoughts in your comments and let me know what you guys think. JohnCampea.net. I'm John Campea.